Hi, everybody. Hi, it's me. We're back. Welcome to yet another episode of Have I Told You the One About? But tonight, we don't actually know. Do you know why? Because I'm a ditzy blonde. um, uh, there are all kinds of very intelligent blondes out there. I just don't happen to be one of them. I forgot yet again at the end of last night's episode to draw my card. So, magic story bag. I made myself a new. Okay, here's this new thing. Every night I get this crazy little glitch that happens. So I've got a thing. I'm going to hold this up and then you'll know that I know that we have a glitch. So we don't have to worry about it. This is my new high tech way of dealing with the low tech of YouTube not being all that reliable. But whatever. I love you, YouTube. You're bringing people to me. So that's my new thing, glitch. So I'm not going to say anything. You don't have to write me and say, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And we'll just both know that it's happening. There you go. So, magic story bag. I have special announcements at the end. Remember, I promised you last night we were going to have an announcement, so the announcement's going to happen. Oh, look. I got hired. That's what we're doing today. Oh, I love this. Oh, don't scratch your nose. You're on live camera. Wait. Oh, that was good right there. Whew, I needed that. Yeah, we're fine. Oh, and I just want to give a little shout out to my friend, my grad student who gave me these earrings, Mange. She gave me 2 pairs of earrings, and this is perfect, right? Anyways, so uh, tonight's story is I got hired. Well, I've been at my job teaching creative writing at the University of British Columbia in the Okanagan in Kelowna. That's where I live, for all those of you who don't know. For almost 13 years. It'll be 13 years in, well, July 1st. So 13 years ago, what's this? Is this March? This is like an anniversary story. I wonder what day I actually had my interview. But this time, 13 years ago, I was working at UBC library. I worked for the UBC library and the UBC bookstore, and I ran a reading series for a long time. Yeah, and with a whole bunch of other people. I wasn't the only person who ran the reading series. Shout out to my peeps, Trina and Matt, and a bunch of other people. Anyways, everybody's great. Blaine Nickerson and Matt Rader and Trina Chambers and Elizabeth Paczynski and anybody else who doesn't hate me for not naming them, you too. So I ran this reading series with my friends and it was like a dead end job. I wasn't going to go anywhere. I did it, worked at the job in Vancouver. It was one of the most expensive cities in the country. And I did that because I worked part-time and had benefits. And so I could buy new glasses and get some medical coverage. I finally got, my teeth cleaned after a decade. Um, and I was working that job for a long time, like after grad school for about 10 years. And I was working really hard because the job was easy and it paid me. But then I was also an artist freelancing. And I was super poor. I'd been raised poor and I went to university poor and I went to grad school poor. And then I got a job and I was okay. I remember the year I got my job at the UBC bookstore, winter came and I was wearing 3 coats. And my friend Trina said, "Why are you wearing 3 coats in the winter? Like, why don't you just go buy yourself a winter coat?" And it had not occurred to me that I could afford to buy. And I looked at her and I said, "Oh my God, I have a job. I could buy myself a winter coat." We were so poor growing up that I thought irons, like an iron was really expensive. I thought an iron was like, I don't know what I thought it was, like $100. It was like $10 at Walmart. I couldn't believe it. It was, anyways, I was really broke. And because I was working so hard, I thought, look, so I didn't finish that working hard. I also was doing all kinds of nightlife stuff. Like I was organizing readings and I was organizing literary skank cabaret with friends at a stripper bar. And I did dance parties where we had 700 people with a bunch of friends. And so I was performing and I was writing books and I was just, making art all the time and being broke, making movies, being broke because I was only working part time so that I could have time to make other things. It was a trade. I tell all of my students it wasn't a sacrifice, it was a trade. I was trading free time for the ability to be able to do this for money. Anyways, so but I got really tired of it and I just thought I need to do a little more. I need a better return for my investment. If I'm going to I was approaching that was 2008. So I was like 38 36 37 years old. Yeah, 37 years old. That was a hard math. And I thought I'm approaching 40 and I just don't want to be broke forever. I don't want to be this exhausted forever. I don't want to be financially unstable because I'm really freaked out. My parents are going to die and I'm not going to get any money. I'm going to live poor for the rest of my life. So I'm going to apply for a job and just see what I can do. So I applied to a whole bunch of jobs. I got an interview to do this job at Kwantlen University College to teach creative writing. But they didn't have any work for me, so they put me on their list of people who they could employ if they had employment, but they didn't, which was fine. It was just bad timing for me. And I got an interview for the Queer Film Festival to be the director of programming and did a really good job. And what I realized here's what I tell my students. I didn't have anything on paper that said I could do that job. It My resume didn't have any of that stuff in there, even though I had organized a million cultural events. I'd been organizing cultural events for a decade, all kinds of them, and working with community groups and doing all kinds of stuff. And I didn't realize, because I wasn't paid, this is how naive I was, because nobody gave me money to do it. Capitalism fools you. I thought that wasn't real labor, right? I thought that didn't count as work. But then when I was applying for the job, I talked to friends and they said, no, no, you got to work all that stuff in. So I got an interview and I worked that stuff in. And the questions they asked me, they knew me because I'd been screening movies there and volunteering for a long time. Um, and they had a first round of interviews, and when I could tell from all the questions that they asked me that there was something in my skill set that wasn't on my resume. I had all this organizational ability and I'd apply for grants and la la la. So I had all this stuff. And so I realized that I had like real I don't know, skills, I could do shit. So they didn't hire me. They hired somebody else who was amazing. And when they told me who they hired, I was like, yeah, of course you're going to hire that person. They're amazing. I could give a shout out to them. Yeah, Vanessa Kwan. They hired Vanessa Kwan. And, so obvious that why wouldn't you hire Vanessa Kwan? She's amazing. So that was a great person to not get a job to. And it was such a gift because then UBC Okanagan posted for a creative writing professor. And I'd had all this experience. I had already had a couple interviews. Like whenever I was in high school, I had okay, I'm going to give you some background because it's interesting. When I was a kid, I was probably my first job I probably got when I was 8 years old. How old would I have been? No, maybe I was 10 years old. My parents used to go to the major A games, the junior major A's, the hockey team. We had the Cornwall Royals. They won the Memorial Cup 2 years in a row. That was my home team. They were really fabulous. And they couldn't afford to buy tickets for us. So they got us jobs. My sister sold um, raffle tickets for a while. And then when she stopped selling raffle tickets, she moved to selling hot dogs. And I got her raffle ticket job. So I would stand in the civic complex in Cornwall, and I would say, "Tickets for the Royals fan club draw tickets. Tickets for the Royals fan club draw tickets." And my high little baby girly voice. I had such a girly voice. Everybody thought I was a girl. Anyways, so that was my first job, and I'd had jobs all the way through. Like then I had a newspaper, and then I worked in a gas station for 3.5 years, and then I worked in BASF manufacturing plant. They made chemicals. Anyways, worked in the lab washing beakers. It was intense. So I had had jobs all through childhood, but when I went to university, I got way more. I don't know, neurotic. I think part of it was that I was hungry and I wasn't eating enough, and it gave me mood swings. And I could not find a job because I was so terrified of the world. I moved to Toronto from Cornwall. Cornwall's 46,000 people. Toronto's, 3 million. And I went to Glendon College for university. It's part of York University. It's their little bilingual campus. It's where Michael Ondaatje taught before he wrote The English Patient and then left to go to the Canadian Film Center. And he never taught again. And he left the year I went there. And I went there so that I could take a class with him, literally. Anyways, uh, so I would lived in Toronto and was so intimidated. I would walk wherever to some business and I would stand outside with my resume, talking to myself almost out loud, saying, "Look, Mick, you can just go in there. You just walk up to them and ask them if they need somebody, and uh, you give them a resume and you leave. It's that easy." And I couldn't do it. I could not walk through the door. I was just too, I don't know, intimidated by the world. I was too full of self loathing and I had no confidence. I just didn't think I was capable of things. I just didn't want to. I used to get nervous and break out into a sweat waiting in line for a movie because I didn't want people to look at me because I thought they, not that they were necessarily judging me badly, but just that they had opinions about me and I couldn't handle it because I'd been such a small sissy faggot in a blue collar town. Like it just, I was just trained to be fearful of the world. So I couldn't apply for a job. So when I started looking in my late 30s, I had never really looked that hard for a job. Like I just got jobs that kind of landed in my lap and I stayed in them for a long time. And the UBC gig was a really good one because once you're in the union, you're in the union and it's really great. And it had benefits and I could get my teeth cleaned and go to a doctor. Well, the doctors are free because it's Canada, but shit like that. I had stuff that was covered. I could get glasses. Um, and so UBC was advertising for a creative writer, and I was so freaking excited about this. And I put my resume together. I did a lot of weird intervention. I got a job. Oh, I don't even know. Yeah, there we go. By some weird invention, I got an interview for that job at UBC Okanagan. So I prepared out the ass for that job. I wrote out lists on sheets of paper, authors thing. I had all kinds of work that I did for, oh, why is my connection so shitty? Sorry, people, if you're having problems. Um, I so and when I came in and I had handouts that I gave out, I was doing concrete poetry things, and so I had handouts for all those. So when I went into the interview, I had all of these things ready, sitting on the desk in front of me, all these little piles of things. I really I really sold it. Anyways, I'd been to Kelowna once before. I stayed overnight. I did a reading at UBCO, but I didn't see hardly anything of anything, and I didn't know anything about the place. And it was 4 hours away, and I'd never been to the Okanagan before then. And so suddenly I spent I flew in, I got up at 5 in the morning, and at 6 o'clock, I was in a cab, and at 7:30 or something like that, I was on a, yeah, quarter to 8, I was on a plane, and at quarter to 9, I landed in Kelowna and I got met by Breyer, who is the head, what was the head at the time of creative studies. Breyer is a printmaker, so he works in a studio all day, and he gets totally filthy. And I got all dressed up, like I wore a blazer and I wore a tie and I wore a shirt and I wore like good pants, and I tried to look as fancy and professional as I could. I was going for a university interview. I was really intimidated. And Breyer shows up and he's wearing like ill-fitting jeans and a shirt, like a long sleeve shirt, which was dressed up for him. It was really wrinkled, and a little like dirty, filthy ball cap because he's in the studio all day and that's what he wears to teach. But I didn't know that. He just picked me up and he looked like a farmer. And I'm like, a farmer's picked me up for a job interview, and this is the head. He was super nice, really lovely. He was this giant of a man. He's like 7'2". He's more like 6'7" 7, maybe 6 or something. And he was driving a Yaris. We got into his Yaris. We were like in a clown car. And we drove to the campus, which was a few minutes away. And we had a little bit of time before the interview. So he said, I'm going to give you a tour. So we went around. It was the end of the year. It was March. So the grad students had all set up all their art. All the visual artists do a year-end grad show, and they have all of their art in the classrooms and in the art gallery and in the hallways and stuff. And it's really pretty. And so Breyer gives me a tour all the way around. We see all this great art. I met the Duties, who are this fantastic hot duo, art duo. They make amazing work. They've done like parties at the AGO or stuff. And anyways, now they're back and they're teaching and doing grad school here, and they're amazing. But I met them there. They had this trippy, three-dimensional, pervy sculpture of this guy in a rubber suit kneeling on a pad. It was this wild thing. It had all this great art. Anyways, I was in love with them. And I said to Breyer when we were doing the tour, I said, I just need to ask you a question because you seem like a nice guy. Am I overdressed? Should I take this tie off? Because I sort of feel like, you're kind of casual and I'm kind of, super dressed up. And he said, no, well, I teach in the print studio, so that's why I wear these clothes. I was like, oh, yeah, of course, that makes sense. And he said, yeah, you're not too dressed up. You don't have to wear the tie if you don't, there might not be anybody there in a tie. There probably won't be. So it's up to you. And I was like, okay, thanks. I hope that's not a weird question. So we finished the tour and I've got like 15 minutes before the interview. So he says, I'll go let you powder your nose and here's the room and I'll just meet you back here. There's the bathroom, whatever. Have a little break. You get 15-minute break. So, I got myself together and I took off my tie and I put it in my bag and I go into the interview and I lay down all my sheets of paper and I sit down and people are just sort of mingling and they're getting ready to sit. And Breyer walks in and I stand up and, shake his hand. I'm doing the whole manly thing. And the guy across the table from us looks at me and it says, Michael, it's weird you're not wearing a tie. And I froze for a moment. And I looked around and I looked at Breyer and he had this little smirk on his face. I was going for the job interview of my life and the head pulled a prank on me. He told everybody there what had happened. And so they devised this joke. And he said, I even went back to my studio and I tried to see if I could make ties or find ties. We were all going to wear ties so that you'd be the only one without one. And I was like, well, I have this job in the bag. I know who these people are. So I sold that job out the ass. I talked about how I was a gay man and I was never going to have children. And this place is where I could invest my legacy. This is where I could invest my time and my energy and my enthusiasm for the world. I was going to love those kids. And I was going to die knowing that I had done something great in the world. And this job was my container to do those things, which is true. It's how I feel about the job. But I had that vision going into it. And I thought, I need to like sell the shit out of this. It's a storytelling job. I got hired to be a creative writer in fiction. So what do? You tell a really good story about why you are the best person for the job. And if you're lucky, you told the best story, and that's how you get a job, right? It's not like people take you out and say, oh, do these things and show me how you do it. No, you just talk yourself into all the jobs you get, right? It's amazing. So uh, it's a long day. I end up there. I had a lunch date after that, and then I had a teaching demo after that, and then I had a dinner date after that, and then I had a student. There was a student event. They said, "Oh, do you want to come to the student event?" And what are you supposed to say when you're on a job or interview? Not like, "Holy shit, I'm so tired. Are you kidding?" No. I said, "Yeah, I would love to. That sounds great. I'm going to put in a 17-hour day today. Woo!" So I went to the student event and it was really great. It was actually heart opening to see all those students sharing their work. And I didn't check into my hotel until 10 p.m. that night. I was up at 5, I was in a cab at 6 something, and I didn't check into my hotel till 10 o'clock at night. And I had to go to bed and wake up in the morning and have breakfast and be at the campus for 9 a.m. the next day to do my last presentation. Maybe it was 10 a.m. Anyways, it was a long day and a half. And I did my presentation and then I spent hours. I was so exhausted when I got done. And I thought, well, I think I did the best job that I possibly could. I got in a plane, I flew to Kelowna. And if you listen to one of my other stories, I don't remember what story I mentioned it in. Oh, I don't know. But I was in Portugal for a little while. Oh, my Lisbon story. Yeah. The Lisbon Hotel Príncipe Real, which is a really good kind of spooky story. Uh, for those people, it's underwatched really for because it doesn't have a sexy title. I should have put naked in it or something. So I ended up in Portugal because I just after that told them, I warned everybody, look, I'm going to be leaving. So if you want to get a hold of me, my phone number, you're going to have to. My phone number is not going to work because I'm going to be living on a beach in Portugal in a tiny little town with my friend. I'd set up 3 months for me to have a writing retreat there for super cheap because I didn't get a Canada Council grant that I'd applied for. So I ended up in Portugal for 3 months. And about 1 month in, oh, let me tell you a little bit about staying there because that's fun. I kind of need to tell you this. So the little town I stayed in is called Nazaré, and it has two halves. There's a big sort of uh, rock uh, formation that sticks out. Is it a jetty? I don't know. It's a really tall hill of rocks. I don't know what it's called. It's like a mountain of rocks. Anyways, and it sticks out into the water like a little peninsula or something. And on this side is where the village is, and it's all sheltered, right? Because of the big rock thing, there aren't any big waves. It's really sheltered. And so they built all the way down there. They built up on the rock. There's some people who live up there, and they built down in the bay area. And that's where and everybody goes there, all kinds of people from Portugal and from other places. People go to that little town in the summer just to lay on the beach and do nothing. But I was there uh, from well, March, April, May. No, no, I left right after that. So April, May, June. Yeah, April, May, June, something like that. Whatever. So here I was in this little town, a fag. What's there to do? How do you find other gay people? Well, the gay people were on the other side of the rock. On that side of the rock, it's all beach for as far as you can see in both directions. It's just beach. So, and in order to get over the rock, you can walk all the way around the village, or you can take a funicular. And who do you think designed that funicular? Mr. Eiffel himself from the Eiffel Tower designed the funicular. It was terrifying. I'm afraid of heights. So you'd climb the funicular and then you'd walk down the other side. And that was a clothing optional beach where men hung out. So it was a gay cruising area. And there were only like 4 guys there at most at any one time. That was busy. But I would go because you'd get the beach to yourself. You might see some gay people and maybe you'd get a little, I don't know. If my mom's watching, I didn't do that. Um, and it was just a way to maybe meet some friends, right? That's the nice thing to do. And I would read books and there wouldn't be anybody to bother me. So I'm sitting on the so when I got there, it turns out I keep forgetting little details. When I got there, it turns out that Voda cards are really cheap. People who've traveled in Europe, I don't know what they're doing now, but Voda cards are super cheap. And you can get a tiny little phone for like 40 euros and it would come with a Vodafone card and it wouldn't cost very much. And you could text and you could get phone calls. So I gave the UBC my phone number and said, if you need to call me, here it is, but this is my email. So one day I'm hanging out on the beach, nude beach. So I'm naked, laying on my towel. I was younger then, laying on my towel, if you can imagine it, with my younger body. And my phone rings. And the cell reception there is shit. So it's rare that my phone rings, but I was like, Jesus, my phone's ringing. Who's calling me? Nobody ever calls me. Everybody just texts. So I look at the phone. I don't know who it is. I answer the phone. I'm like, hello. And isn't it the associate dean calling me to offer me a job? I'm standing naked on a beach, in a cruising beach in Portugal, trying to get a good cell reception because I only have one bar because I'm in the spot where it doesn't normally work. And I'm talking to somebody who's offering me a job that's double the salary I'm currently paying or something like that. I hadn't. and he wants to negotiate the salary on the phone with me. And I'm standing naked trying to get cell service, trying not to, attract too much attention to the naked men I'm not interested in having sex with, negotiating how much money they're going to pay me for my new job. And I'm so naive. This is how stupid I was. Don't ever do this. He said, "Oh, we're going to offer you, I'm just going to tell you the number because it's public and I don't really care, right? We need to talk about money." I was making $32,000 a year at that point, which was not a lot of money in 2008. And he said, "We're going to pay you 60." And I was like, "Holy fuck." I was like, "Okay, that sounds great. That sounds really good. I'm happy." And the associate dean, bless his goddamn heart, Kenneth, said to me, "Michael, that's not how it works. You're supposed to negotiate." And I was like, "Oh, sorry. Well, when I thought about it, I thought maybe the job would be about 70. So I want to say 70." And he said, "68's as high as I'm allowed to go. I'm just going to give it to you." Because I was so fucking bad at it. And I started my job at $68,000 a year. And I negotiated that salary standing naked on a beach. And what I didn't realize, what took me quite some time, like actually years to know, when other people got hired after me a few years later and they became my friends and we were talking about getting hired, they said, "Oh yeah, we had a lot of back and forth about our um my salary and stuff." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I did a really bad job of that. I just told them, and they gave me a new number, but they just gave me the top end." And they were like, "What do you mean, like in a line, like just on the phone or something?" And I was like, "Yeah, I was on the phone." And they were like, "You mean you didn't correspond back and forth?" And then it occurred to me, I was like, "Yeah, like why didn't they just send me an email saying we're going to offer you the job and let's negotiate your terms?" Or like, I didn't even know I could have said, "Hey, this is a bad time. Can I call you back?" I thought like, take it now, say yes, because they might never offer it to you again. They might realize they made a terrible mistake. Sign it in ink as soon as possible. Anyways, so the moral of this story is, if you're ever get a job offer, do not take for like a professional job. Do not take the salary they offer you. Negotiate the ass out of it. Call me, Michael V. Smith, and I'm going to tell you some good advice. That's my story about I got hired. Bitches, now I get paid to do shit like this. Oh, fucking great job. I get to do weird art shit and it counts for my job. Jesus, that's great. I have things I need to tell you. I am not going to forget because it's at the top of my list. We need to go into the magic story bag and find out what the story is for tomorrow. Hey, Cord, you're supposed to be in there. Oh, I kind of looked. I got to mix them up. What's it going to be? What's tomorrow's story? Oh, Jesus. Well, you've heard about him before and you've been asking questions. Tomorrow it's Uncle Bob's last dinner, which is really my last dinner with Uncle Bob. But Uncle Bob's last dinner sounds better. So that's the story for tomorrow. Here's my announcement. Are you ready? Are you ready for the announcement? Are you all ready? Telling a new story every night for the indefinite future. Maybe we're going to be here for 3 months. I don't want it to be 3 months. You don't want it to be 3 months. There are two weirdos in wherever who don't like people and they're happy if it's 3 months. So it's not sustainable. I don't have 90 stories in me. So I'm going to finish next week and I'm going to move to a variety show structure. I'm only going to run the show Monday to Friday. Uh-oh, what's today? Today's Friday. What's that? Do I hear a collective, "No, we didn't get any warning"? Tough luck, bitches. You're not paying for this. This is free shit. I need a weekend. I need some time off. So we're going to run Monday to Friday. I'm going to finish my week next week. I'm going to do story time all week. Don't you worry. It's still going to be, have I told you the one about Monday to Friday next week? There's no show tomorrow or Sunday. And then the following week, I'm going to start the variety show. I'm still working out some of the details. I think I'm going to tell them to you because I'm going to test them out and see what we think. I would love feedback. If you want to give me feedback, this is my high end. I am so high end. You can email me feedback at michaelvsmith.com, or you can tweet it out. I'm at, it's Michael and then V-E-E Smith, at Michael V. Smith. So that's how you can find me to give me some feedback if you want. Are you ready for this? Here's what I'm planning. Monday, we're going to do story time. Tuesday, I'm going to do mail in. So I'm going to answer your mail, which means you need to mail me things and ask me questions. So it's sort of an improvised, hey, what does Cookie know? I used to do a do as I say and not as I've done sex column. And I was quite good at giving people advice based on terrible experience that I had had. And here's what you should do instead. Or it could just be, you mail in letters that you want to write about. You could tell your own stories. You could tell your Uncle Bob story or your I Got Hired story. And I'll read my favorites out because I'm going to have so many to choose from. I won't have time for all of them. So a mail in on Tuesday. Wednesday, I think I teach creative writing and I'm a big writer and I like doing writing things. And so I think I'm going to do like a poetry night. You don't have to show up every night. And if you don't like poetry, don't tell me. That's not nice. That's rude. And if you do like poetry, I like you even more and you can stay. So I'm going to do something like lit shit, I think, something like that. Lit shit on Wednesday nights. And I'm going to read some poems and talk about it. I'm going to put a little reading together. So I don't have to generate. I'm trying to find ways to generate material without being boring. Thursday night, I'm going to do a phone in. So I'll put it on speakerphone and people can call me at, what will it be through? I mean, I have to figure it out. So I'm thinking this through. And Friday night, we're going to do split screen special guest. I'm going to have a special guest on Friday nights. I'm going to interview people. I know all kinds of great people who do fabulous things around the world. So we're going to touch in with them. I've been looking up, there's technology for how you can have two people in. So I'm going to figure that out. I'm thinking about it. Some other ideas that I haven't decided that maybe if I want to switch out one day for another, if mail everybody's like, I'm not going to write you. Are you kidding? We could do bingo. I could potentially do bingo, or we could do games or something. Anyways, I have to figure all that shit out. Who knows? I'm not sure, but I'm determined to keep it going because you need something to do. I like having something to obsess over during the day. Happy, happy. Now, I want to remind you that tomorrow is Uncle Bob's last dinner. Please like, share, and subscribe. I got 267 subscribers so far, and 50 of those came from yesterday, which I think is thanks to CBC. So if you're listening in thanks to CBC, you're hot and I love you. So I'd really like to hit 300, but who cares? Because I've decided not to care about numbers. I'm not one of those fags. Whatever many inches you want to give me is fine. Here's the thing. Whenever I'm at the end of the day, this is a new thing I'm adding into the end of every show. At the end of the day, I have to hit this little button that says end stream. So I have to move my little cursor over there and then push the button. So I'm going to do selfie time. So I'm just going to look at the camera and, look away. So you can stand here, right here. This is where your face can go. And you can take a picture with me and we'll do a selfie together. And then you could send them to me. You could upload them onto my YouTube channel, or you could email them to me. And maybe I'll be able to print them off or share my screen or something. I might be able to find a way to share them. It'd be great if you take your selfie. I'm just going to keep smiling. Yeah, take it. Did you get it? Yeah, you're good people. I love you. Thanks for participating. Now you're going to email it to, you can find my contact, michaelvsmith.com, or you could tweet it out or whatever. And I'm going to share some of those. And there's me hitting my button or I'm ready to hit my button. I love you all. Thank you for listening. I'm having a great time. Wash your hands. And I'm going to see you on Monday. Have a good weekend.